Hello YouTube, it's Maureen. I kind of didn't have a good idea for what video to do come the new year. So I decided I'm going to show you a little bit of my personal doll collection. Now these are dolls that were not made by me. Let's preface that right off the bat. These are not made by me, but they are collectible. They're available to be found on eBay and other used items sites. So I thought to myself, well, you know, I have these really cool historical themed dolls, and they've been living in the basement in a box since I moved, and I finally decided that they needed to get some attention and some not living in a box, I suppose, because who wants to live in a box after all? But anyway, so what we have here are porcelain dolls that are sold by historic royal palaces. These dolls are made by an artist called Brenda Price. We have Catherine of Aragon there in the back. I'm going to move over to the side so you can kind of see her dress. So she's got herself a nice velvet dress. They're porcelain, and then they're fully clothed, and then they have a cone that is covered by fabric that actually, let me show you kind of the situation. There are feet. So there are ceramic feet underneath. And each doll is individually labeled as well. That's what this is. So as you can see, this is the official historic porcelain doll collection from historic royal palaces. They give you a number, they give you the year. These dolls are older, and they are still continuing to make them. The Brenda Price still makes them, but they're different series, they're numbered, and sometimes the outfits will look different. So this is Anne Boleyn. She doesn't have her little bee, but I can probably find a little bee charm to put on her necklace if at some point. The only trick is with them being out, they unfortunately do get a little dusty. But what I would suggest with that kind of situation is getting a, what I like to call a velvet clothing brush, actually, is what it would be. I bought a couple of them online. They come in really handy, especially with cat hair. So, but I love the fact that, you know, you have faux trim. She has her 4 sleeves and her kirtle. And then you have, you know, a girdle here. I have them holding little brocaded hearts that I found for Valentine's Day. But they all have a little bit of jewelry, which is always very nice. Let me see. Put that back on her. And now this one is Lady Jane Grey. Is this particular one. I really love her blue eyes. Now, porcelain dolls weren't really a thing up until more so in the 18th century. Could they have been made in porcelain back in the 16th century? They could have been made out of clay more than anything else. And yes, they could have been baked. So there is a possibility of a clay doll that would have been painted and dressed. A lot of them were made out of wood and then painted and dressed. So, I mean, there is the possibility of it being actual porcelain. That part I'm not 100% sure about, but clay, definitely. Now, like the back of her French hood here, it's a little different. Now, I bought some of these used, so unfortunately, she has a little staining here that I'll have to figure out how to remove. But other than that, she doesn't have any other stains. This I bought. This is a embroidery from earlier, but you know, beautiful. Her split skirt, you know, matches the same fabric as her sleeves. Really nicely put together dolls. can't really complain. They're really nice. This is the gabled headdress as we know it, but it would have been known as the English headdress at that point in time. And these, of course, are the French. Hers is also gathered in the back as well. So that's 3 of the ladies. One is not Henry's wife, so Lady Jane Grey is later. And over here, I have Anne of Cleves. And I always thought her outfit was kind of interesting. And to be honest with you, when you look at the Holbein portrait of Anne of Cleves, it's difficult to put that together unless you're very familiar with this particular style of clothing. So I really appreciate the solid attempt that we have at the trim and, you know, the upper puffed sleeve and then the hanging sleeve. So I'm seeing the silhouette of what they were trying to achieve here. And then also a high-necked chemise, the ruffle. I mean, the detail on these is really good. Now, I think she's a later set. Doesn't give a year on this, I'm seeing. Second edition, limited to 143. Yeah, it doesn't give a year, though. But yeah, even the detail, like they have painted rings here on the hand. You know, things like that. It's just, the level of detail is amazing. I bought a lot of these used, so this is sort of like second owner for many of these. And this one we have Catherine Howard, more so based off of her official court portrait is what I like about these, is that they try to keep it for something like that. Let's see. And I give her a little doodad that I found, you know, have fun with it after all. But yet again, beautiful choice of fabrics. So they did the split front, but then they used a partlet, so it's all coordinating. Another wonderful French hood. And then we have Catherine Parr here in the back. So you have a little bit of a different kind of bonnet with her. So you have more of a hairnet here. Then of course her flat cap and a nice feather. You know, yet again, really nice detail. We have like the chain, girdle belt, and then chain on top as well. So, and they actually have fairly nice, pleasant expressions on their faces. I think she looks a little more concerned maybe than the other two, but for the most part, nice expressions. And peacocks, because they're fun. Peacock puppets, at least. Folk Manus makes the coolest finger puppets and animal puppets. Totally a fan. This happens to be a Santos doll replica that I had purchased, but I did the clothing on this one. So that all the clothing, the wig, is me. I purchased the loot, but I made the strap. So and then made sort of a very long braid in the back. This material is made from a pashmina scarf, so don't be afraid to source materials in interesting ways. So the back of the strap as well. So all the detail. Then I have my inspiration board here for Tudor Tailor because, yes, my Lucette. And then these are notions, are in the various different glass jars. Okay, and on the other side of the desk, let's see, bear with me here. All right. Now, For the longest time, I couldn't find an appropriate Jane Seymour doll. And anytime I try to get one from the Brenda Price, sorry, shaky cam there, from the Brenda Price collection, it would elude me. This one's from a different collection that is Jane Seymour, but very different sort of porcelain collectible. On her, you know, yet again, not made by me, but it does give Queen Jane Seymour 1509 to 1557. She has, you know, porcelain legs, sort of a crinoline underskirt, even though that wouldn't have been used back then. But she's glued to a base. The other ones have their cone-shaped skirting that they sort of balance on. Their feet don't seem to touch from underneath the cone shape. But I love her gabled hood. It is just awesome. It's not perfect by any means as far as costuming goes, but you really get a sense of the shape. And I can turn her around here. You've got a nice, now it's one solid piece of a veil. They're not splitting it, even though with these English headdresses, they could be a split veil and not a single veil. Both were used. But yet again, we have some pretty nice jewelry. The lace on this doll is just phenomenal. And I just happened to get her on a chance eBay purchase. So, I mean, you can find some amazing things if you're looking out on the internet. And I bought these dolls probably, maybe 10 years ago, or at least really started expanding my collection by that point in time. And a lot of them have been living in a plastic tote, gently put away and wrapped and things of this nature. So it's nice to just get them out and let them see a little bit of light of day. The velvet, though, on this one is just wow. It's like a velveteen that I would use for myself. And I mean, you have the separate layers. So, I mean, for a costume art doll, I guess you could say, these are really nice. Now, this is another one that is a Brenda Price doll. Now, Brenda Price, in the 80s, a lot of her dolls were about like 16, 17 inches tall, and then they sort of got smaller from there. In the early 2000s, they're only about 12 inches tall, which is what you were seeing on the other ones that were on my dresser there. She's much bigger. Now, she is Anne Hathaway, the wife of Shakespeare, or at least that's what this version is, but you can't really beat a nice Elizabethan lady. So we have, you know, a doublet-like outfit here, tapestry, split open skirt, and tapestry sleeves to go together. Let me just pull her over here so you can take a good look. Sorry for the shaky cam, folks. I'm doing this one on my phone. But I mean, she took all the detail to make the nice ruff. That's holding up pretty well, actually. And then cuffs. And yet again, there's feet underneath there, but the cone is really taking most of the balance and the weight. Like, the feet don't seem to really actually touch the table. But yeah, nicely sculpted hands. Very simple. Nice expressions. I mean, glass eyes, porcelain face. I mean, this would be more something you would probably see in the 18th century, especially with the glass eyes. They don't really, glass eyes don't tend to come in the 16th century. At least I've not found evidence in descriptions of them. I've run into evidence of very lifelike descriptions, but they don't mention that what they're made out of. Could there have been glass? Possibly, because glass making in Italy was becoming a thing at the time. But it would probably have been something very elite because it was expensive at that time, so it would probably be an expensive doll if it was used that way. I doubt that it was. It becomes more commonplace and more seen in the 18th century to have glass eyes on dolls. But yet again, another fantastic velvet, and this is just the prettiest rose color to go with the tapestry. So I love how these are dressed. Brenda Price does an amazing, amazing job with her work. I could only hope to get as good with my faces eventually. Goals. And this is one of my other Santos dolls here. These are about, no, they're like 18, 24 inches tall. And they are right now sort of used like a bookend. Oh, this one. There we go. This poor violin has seen better days, but you can't really help when the cats decide they want to jump up on things they're not supposed to. There we go, that's a bit better. But this one is completely dressed, yet again by me. The doll itself had sort of the cage cone-like shape at the bottom, did not really have a wig or anything. I added a braid over the hair that they had, and then created a veil. That's out of organza. You have a linen shift underneath with some tassels just for interest, not that that was really a period thing. We have gold trim. We have blue silk, and orange silk. The skirt part is another pashmina scarf. And then the bodice and the lining of some of the sleeves is a mugga silk that I happened to procure a while back. I do have a little bit more of that, but not by much. And then some lace for good measure. But lots of fun making the outfits for the Santos dolls. And just slowly collecting the Brenda Price and your occasional Tudor lady art doll. And it didn't really matter whether or not they were the English style hood or the French hood. It doesn't really matter. I love both styles. They're awesome. So going past all the rest of the other books, this lady over here is just sort of hanging out. This was a doll that was gifted to me by my sister, and it started its life as a Carmelite nun doll. Well, you can see she's kind of gone for a natural persuasion here. I decided to dress her more in the Dutch Golden Age. This is a light black silk, and then I have it edged in cotton. So more so a pointed bodice, puff sleeve, so more so like the Dutch Golden Age. And I have a linen undershift, a linen cap, a linen apron. She has her broom, a little components pouch, her cauldron. I wish it was more so metal, but it's plastic because lightness and mobility are important in this case. So just a fun overall project. Oh, she also has a silk veil. And then her little witchy hat, which the witchy hat is commercial, but to be honest with you, it kind of just goes with the aesthetic. So I could probably make her a different, more closely accurate to the period hat out of like a wool felt. So that's an eventual goal. We'll make something really nice. But for now, that does the job. I mean, I do have my little cauldron down here. But I mean, even if I emptied this, I don't think this would balance very well. I think it would keep falling off of her hand, so we'll just keep the other one there for now. We might find better options. So I have these cauldrons over here. So, and there is Dorothy. She sort of lives in the corner. And those other copper cauldrons happen to have my masks in them. And some other things, but there's my face masks. It's a good place to store them. This is one of my dolls that I have made based on the 1620 portrait of 3 young girls. Not the very best sculpting, and she's getting sort of bumped around being on the nightstand. That's why she's sort of leaning at this point. But still a fun project, and her ruff is probably my favorite. Ruff in the apron is just awesome. And that's my first attempt at making like an embroidered lace. Gives me a good excuse to use some lace. All right. Ooh, we don't want to focus. There we go. And around to the other side. Okay. Now, this one is a doll that I purchased from the Tudor Tailor. Before they came out with the Tudor Child, they had a few of these dolls that were for sale. This happened to be the last one available on the website, and I decided that, darn it, I wanted one, so I picked one up. The skeleton is an addition, but we are living in dark times, so, you know, a little bit of foreboding death symbolism. You can't necessarily go wrong with that. So, plague, yay. And you get to use your Halloween decorations year-round, because why not? But to protect her from dirt, cat fur, dust, I have her in a little cloche. The other doll is in another bell cloche on the other side. And I probably will get another one because I have a kit from the Tudor Tailor to make another of these dolls that I think it's a brunette one that I bought. And an additional head and hand, so I have enough to make 2 dolls. Because all I have to do is follow the patterns and the instructions in the kit, and I can make a second one. So we might have a couple more cloches around of Elizabethan ladies, because why not? And I still have several images in my, what I call a doll binder. It's images of paintings from the time frame, so I could definitely pick one of those images, make the doll, dress it based on the portrait. Even though it's a kit that the doll is made from, I wouldn't enter it in an arts and sciences situation just because I didn't really make the doll. I would really just be making the clothes. But nonetheless, a fun project to keep one busy while we're all still sort of separated at this point in time. But I mean, the faces on the dolls are just awesome. There we go. Now these, in the Tudor Tailor kit, they are made out of like a resin. In period, they would have been made out of clay or wood, but the resin's more durable for our modern sensibilities. They're also easy to paint with modern paints. I'm going to try mine with gouache and then do a sealer over top, so fingers crossed that that works. And luckily, since I have her, I can kind of use her as a basis for just a general look between that and the inspiration art. So that's just one of my SCA scrolls for my Fleur, my grant of arms in the SCA, which is awesome. They find the coolest art whenever they're making scrolls. So that's pretty much what's going on with me. Or at least I wanted to show you part of my doll collection that I have just around me as inspiration. I hope that your holidays were fantastic, and I hope you find your inspiration in the upcoming new year. A little update on the channel. My goal for 2022 is, if I can, it would be nice to have 1,000 subscribers. I'm only around 200, just above 200 or so, like 243 I think was the last that I saw. So it's not going to be something that I expect to do an entire year, but it's good to have a goal. So if you know anybody that would be sort of interested in some Tudor costuming, a little bit of doll history, weaving, spinning, other kinds of fiber arts like lucid or embroidery, you can always recommend them to take a look at my channel. There's always interesting videos to take a look at. I upload every other Friday, and I look forward to finding out what you're working on. I will talk to everybody later. Bye.